This is one of Cluny the Scourge's Rome Total War online battles. This was in fact a battle that took place in a tournament, an ongoing tournament called the King of the Hill, held by the Total War Centre. I'm playing the Julii, and I've taken 10 units of early legionary cohorts, one of which is a first cohort unit with a legionary standard, 7 units of Roman archers, who have the gold weapon upgrade, and 2 units of onagers. My opponent, General Nuisance, also known as Snipey, takes 9 units of Sacred Band infantry, 10 slingers, 1 of town militia, and 2 units of Numidian mercenaries, that's skirmisher, javelin equipped cavalry. Now you'll realise that means that neither side has actually taken a real cavalry component. This is almost completely a missile and infantry battle. I, however, have my artillery, which I'm using to try to force the Carthaginians to attack me. Now the battle begins as the Carthaginians send in his skirmisher cavalry to engage my archers, which I respond to with massed archer fire to try to knock those units out. The idea of my enemy in using his cavalry in this way seems to have been to occupy the attention of my archers while he moved his slingers into position. Slingers have shorter range than even ordinary archers. However, my opponent does have 10 units of slingers to my 7. Perhaps he still hopes at this point to drown me in bullets to win that missile engagement. He set one of those Numidian cavalry onto Cantabrian Circle, which would make it much more difficult for my archers to cut them down, give those Numidians much longer staying power. However, I've realised what he's up to, and I order my archers to target the slingers instead as they come within range. Now I've positioned 4 of my archers in loose formation in the front, as you can see, and 3 in tight formation behind. Now those troops in tight formation are going to be even further out of the slingers' range, and so will never actually take much casualties in the missile engagement that begins. General Nuisance shows considerable discipline in not launching an all-out attack out of fear of my artillery. He appreciates, especially since all of his troops are on loose formation, that the bark of artillery is considerably worse than its bite in Rome Total War, and holds on for a long time while he tries to make some headway with his missile troops. You'll see there, that's his general unit. Now I've targeted both my onagers on that in the hope of getting a lucky strike that will assassinate his general and give me an edge before we even enter the main infantry combat, by inflicting damage on the enemy's morale. Later on, I'm going to order all of my archers to target that same unit as well, in a continuing effort to try to whittle down his numbers and get at that general. Now, we've both taken quite a lot of infantry units. I've taken 9 units of early legionary cohorts, and none of them are upgraded at all, nor is the legionary first cohort. I went for numbers instead of fighting power. That's why I didn't take later legionary cohorts. I theorized that with those numbers I would be able to maintain my infantry in more heavily ranked, denser fighting units, and yet still be able to achieve outflanking maneuvers and encirclements once the infantry battle began, by rushing the troops on the flanks out around. I'm not entirely sure for what reason General Nuisance took a unit of town militia, unless he simply wanted to use up spare denarii without being interested in buying upgrades. Perhaps he had the idea in mind of sending them out in front of his main infantry to make me waste my pillar if I had set my units to fire at will, which I have done at this point. However, that never actually materializes. By now I am definitely winning the missile duel. My front rank of archers have taken damage, but the rear rank is more or less intact, and his slingers are really suffering. Naturally, my archers have been left on skirmish mode with the idea that when the infantry finally do approach, they will run behind my legionary cohorts and be able to continue supporting them from the rear. But when he makes a desperate ploy with his Numidian mercenaries to attack those archers, I hurriedly switch off the skirmish mode to stop them, so that the damaged unit will simply rout when they come under the concerned by number of enemy effect. Now here you see that General Nuisance has decided it's time to make his move with his infantry. He takes his spearmen off loose formation, and so naturally they immediately form immense gaps between his units, since they weren't deployed in overlapping stages in their main battle line. He doesn't commit all of his infantry at once though, in one stroke. He sends his frontline units in first, and they receive a thorough drubbing at the hands of my legionary cohort's pillar, and also by my exploitation of those immense gaps between those units by sending troops forward, as you see there, to strike them in the flank, and I very quickly rout all of that front line of Carthaginian infantry. Now at this point it's looking pretty bad for my opponent. I reorganize my battle line, I'm ready to meet them, and under time pressure, since I still have plenty of ammunition for my archers and a very little ammunition left for my onagers, he realizes that he can't afford to make some kind of flanking move and he has to go straight into my centre. Now that there is the bulk of his remaining core fighting power, the units that he'd left at the rear of his army originally, and which are therefore pretty much untouched, and also his general unit, which now has pitifully few men left in it, and yet has somehow managed to evade death for the general, irritatingly enough. You see I've sandwiched this unit over on my left, and I'm achieving a wide encirclement over on the right, taking full advantage of my superior numbers. Now per unit those Sacred Band are certainly tougher than mine. They're early legionary cohorts. The difference between early legionary cohorts and the late ones is only 6 units of defense score in the value of their armor, but that still has quite a significant effect in a dense melee battle. I'm supporting my infantry units with flame arrows to try to create a panicked by fire attack effect to speed the enemy on their way. Nuisance cannily turned one of his phalanxes about face just as I was about to hit him in the rear, but they are still now completely encircled, as you can see, and it seems to me that I must surely win this battle. In front, of course, of those phalanxes my legionaries can't close in at all, but striking at the flanks and the rear they should be able to wear them down. However, unfortunately, as you can see, those units from the first wave that I sent packing have regrouped, and Nuisance has sent them back into the fray, and they've hit my encircling units in the rear, which means that those units there are now sandwiched between 2 phalanxes. Already one of my units has routed, and in desperation I send in my onager crews into hand-to-hand combat, and then my archers also, realizing that this has really come down to the wire. But despite all my efforts, what ultimately tells here is the superior fighting quality of the Carthaginian Sacred Band troops. They really are elite soldiers, and they show it. Unit after unit routs, my general is being encircled, and at this point I'm absolutely kicking myself for not having taken just one single unit of the cheapest Roman cavalry, with just one unit of equites or cavalry auxilia, after I had disabled that first wave of Carthaginian Sacred Band spearmen. I could have set the cavalry after them and made sure that they didn't regroup and come back into the battle. Instead, those regrouped troops, who had fled like cowards, turned the tide of the battle. My general is dead and my entire army routs. And here you see the enemy's general unit, which now has 7 men in it. I've been trying to kill it right from the beginning of the battle with artillery, with archers, with the swords of my doughty fighting men, and that bearded buffoon is now marching to glory. My enemy triumphed here. I think I fought pretty well. Certainly I had to work hard for my defeat.